Okay,
All right, hello
we are
everybody.
good.
This is Michael and
Joshua Mervell.
from Comic Book Syndicate. Yep,
That's right.
and we are here because of this is our second news reaction segment that we've done. Actually, both of them have been related to DC
DC,
film
that's
news,
right. Yeah.
right? Which is interesting. We have a DC bias here, I guess. But anyway, so we're here because James Gunn just announced today the plans for the near future of the DC cinematic universe, whatever you want to call it. The new chapter, Gods and Monsters. Josh can explain the terminology. I'm just really excited because I'm a huge James Gunn fan, and I have mixed feelings about some of these things, but we'll get to that in a minute. But Josh, why
Okay.
don't you kind of summarize what exactly happened today?
Right. So, we got news that DC had plans to kind of reboot the DC universe and change things up. Um, and we recently actually just talked about this with Henry Cavill's exit as Superman and James Gunn kind of spearheading the creative side of like how everything's going to work. And well, he just put out a video randomly. Like I had no idea it was really going to come out. I
Neither
had
did
kind of
I.
heard like
Right.
rumblings that an announcement was going to come soon, but
Mm.
so there's like a 5-6 minute long video of him kind of explaining what the plans are for the DC studios, with both animation, movies, and TV, and how they're kind of going to kind of like try and make it a little bit more connected.
Right.
So yeah, I guess we'll kind of just like go through and pull up the video and we can just
Sure.
chat about it. I
Right.
actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if you're going to be able to. Here, let me to see what I'm looking at.
We're still working out the kinks here,
That's
folks. It's
right.
okay. It's okay. It's only our second time.
Right.
I mean, we have been doing the show for 16 years, but this is our second live news reaction. So
Right.
cut us some
Yeah.
slack, right? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think actually I can't. Now that I think about it, I
But
don't
you know
think I
what? It's
can.
okay because we've got a text version of it. How about I just read off a couple of these and you can read
Sure.
off a couple.
Sure, yeah.
So first, I want to point out something that when James Gunn started to talk, I expected a Justice League announcement or Superman being the first thing. No, J- James Gunn is going to launch the new DCU with everybody's favorite property, Creature Commandos. So for
Right.
those that don't know, Creature Commandos, if you go to Google right now and Google Creature Commandos, you'll probably see the Comic Book Syndicate review from Flea Market Fantasy because we're the only people that have talked about the Creature Commandos in the past 26 years. First, Josh, have you ever heard of the Creature Commandos?
Not until today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, the Creature Commandos, basically, if you can imagine a Frankenstein monster, a vampire, a wolfman, and a few other ones kind of teaming up as a platoon of World War II soldiers. That's the Creature Commandos. It's one of those crazy ideas that came and went at DC, and they forgot about it for a few years, but, you know, every once in a while they'll bring it back. And yeah, that's what they're launching with, and it's animated. So what do you think about that, Josh?
That's actually pretty cool. And in the video, they also he also explained that when they are casting somebody for animation, they are keeping in mind that they want to roll these characters over into live action as well. So they are casting people to both play them in animation with voiceover, and those same people are going to be playing them in live action when they do those big crossovers.
Right.
I think it's fantastic. I think animation is a really great medium to tell stories. It's a lot easier to tell a fantastical story in animation than do it in live action. There's a lot of like, things you've got to work around for a character flying, for example. But if it's in
Right.
animation, you can just draw or drag that character up as they're flying and do the cycles and whatnot there. So I think it's extremely smart. I love that they're thinking about the future and casting people to play them in both versions. And it also sounds like this has been in the works for a long time because they've also said that this is already in production. And
Right.
James Gunn has only really been in charge for a little bit. So this definitely sounds like something that was kind of in the works. And James Gunn was like, you know what? since we're doing this, let's do it. Let's roll this into our show that's going on, or our
Mm-hmm.
slate of movies. And it's the same with Waller as well. He briefly talked about Waller, which we did already know about. Um, what we really didn't get, I think, in this announcement was a clear picture of what is canon and what is not canon anymore.
Yes, we should. Yeah, and let's clarify what he did say. There is still going to be movies out of continuity.
Hmm.
For example, the Batman with Robert Pattinson by
Yeah.
Matt Reeves, a few other things he mentioned. But we should, for those that don't know, pretty much every Marvel property now is in canon.
Hmm.
Up until recently, there was a vague sort of TV Marvel, Netflix Marvel, a few other ones. Plus, there was 20th Century Fox, which was bought out by Disney.
Right.
But DC, even though they're all owned by the same company, ever since Nolan's Batman, they've been putting out these movies that don't tie together. So it's like the opposite of Marvel's model. It's always been weird to me.
Yeah, it definitely feels like we've seen this happen before too with the Universal monster
Right.
universe that they've tried to make for years now, and they would put out the first chapter in this monster universe, and then the movie would flop, and they would be like, never mind that. This is now the new chapter,
Yep.
and they would
Yep.
keep redoing that, and the same thing kind of happened with DC. It seems. Because we get something like The Dark Knight that is extremely successful, and we have Christopher Nolan coming on to produce Man of Steel and kind of be a big piece in that puzzle. So presumably, this Man of Steel would be crossing over with the Christian Bale, Christopher Nolan, Dark Knight character, but with Man of Steel not really living up to expectations, and then Christian Bale not wanting to come back, Christopher Nolan same, so they had to kind of restart it again, and then just roll right into Batman v Superman with a new Batman, and jump from there to Justice League, and it's not always connected, and at the same time too, like Green Arrow and Flash and all these CW shows were going on that were successful, but were for some reason not tied into the movies. I never understood why they didn't connect the two.
They, what can I say? I mean, it's like every step of the way. DC launches a Flash TV show, and the same week they announce a different Flash actor
Right.
playing Flash on the big screen. I'm sure there's other ones that I can't remember, but it just seems like, again, sometimes I would say they're doing everything wrong, but then you could argue, well, maybe there's a plan behind it. But I don't think there was a plan. I think it was just throw crap at a wall and see what sticks, right?
Right.
But anyway, we're here to talk about the new regime, right? Not the old regime. So let's talk about more of these projects here, right? Like you mentioned Waller, which, again, I'm ecstatic to hear that he's writing, because the Peacemaker, whatever the hell it was called, that was one of my favorite TV shows of last year. I love
It
that
was
show.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. So if Waller's anything like that, I am in 100%.
And another thing too, I think, that kind of like rolling into some of the other projects that were announced. One of them that caught me off guard was The Authority, which I
Yes.
am not super familiar with, but it seems like it's kind of like these anti-heroes that are like together on a team a la Justice League, who were in another universe, but I think in some sort of Flashpoint story is now in the main continuity, or maybe it was New 52 or something that brought them over to the mainline universe.
Yeah, it was.
But it seems almost like those characters would fit in super well with a Peacemaker-like story, and having these superheroes that are not always great people, like they're going to do whatever they can to save the day. They don't really have as good of morals, I guess.
Well, here's the thing. To be honest, the Authority was the one that shocked me the most, because the Authority was not originally a DC property. It was created for Wildstorm, which Wildstorm was sold to DC. So it never really fit DC to me, because Authority is actually the precursor, like, to what became Ultimates at Marvel. So if you're a fan of that type of widescreen action, you should read The Authority, because The Authority's kind of cynical take on superheroes led to Ultimates, which led to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? So Authority is kind of like the origin of where superheroes are right now. So in a way it makes sense, but in a way it's almost like the opposite of where I feel like James Gunn is going. But you'd have to read the comic to see what I mean, though.
Right. I feel like, though, this is going to be a surprise. I feel like this is going to be the Guardians type story for the DC studios. Because characters that nobody knows or cares about, they're kind of these anti-heroes. Like, it sounds like they're a bunch of misfits. So I'm kind of looking forward to see what they're going to do with this. And the fact that they're also bringing in a team of superheroes that don't play by the book kind of implies that Superman and Batman and the rest of the Justice League are going to be playing by the book, hopefully.
Let's hope so, yeah.
So hopefully that means we get a more traditional take on some of these Justice League characters, which we were kind of missing with the Snyderverse.
Sure.
With these, like, gritty, street level, like, even Superman, so...
Right. Okay, so let's save the best for last.
Okay.
But let's talk about. I'm just looking through the list here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go in order of weirdness. Okay, so next we've got Booster Gold again. Now these are characters that myself and Mike Dell reviewed on Flea Market Fantasy. We did Creature Commandos. We did Booster Gold. Booster Gold is a character the mainstream public might not know about, but he was in certain episodes of Justice League Unlimited, I think, as well as maybe Batman, Brave and the Bold, the cartoon. But he's an interesting character because he's a time traveler from the future, but all of his powers are based on stolen technology. Like, I think he has a Legion flight ring, and of course I can't remember anything.
He's got
else.
A bunch of stuff, right? Yeah. Like, so he's like decades and decades from the future, and he uses a time machine from a museum to go back in time with all this stolen technology, and he's essentially made himself a superhero from the future. But he's kind of a POS. Like, he sucks, he's lazy, he's just kind of like doing it for the fame. So that'll be a fun, interesting story for sure.
And the thing is I'm not a huge fan of Dan Jurgens, but this is a series you could pick up from the 80s that's fun to read, because like you said, he's a POS. He's almost like a rock star. He walks around drives around in a limousine, and he treats himself more like a celebrity than an actual superhero. And he's ahead of the game because he's from the future, but he doesn't know any of our slang. He doesn't know any of our culture, so he's a fish out of water, right?
Gotcha.
So it's a very cool concept, and if they can do it like the 80s comic, I think it'll work. So I'm actually really looking forward to that. That should be fun.
Yeah. And I think there's tons of fun casting that they can do for that role. So, like, they can really have a lot of fun with that story. So
I agree.
We'll see.
Okay, so I'm just gonna quickly look through here to see if I'm missing anything. Okay, next we're gonna talk about Swamp Thing, which already is a TV show that was, I believe, canceled, right?
It was canceled, I think, after the second episode came out. Like, it was immediately canceled.
Okay.
So I don't know if anybody saw it. Did you see that?
No, and the thing is,
I didn't.
the way I feel about Swamp Thing and Doom Patrol is I love the comics by Alan Moore and Grant Morrison, but unless you're going to do a word-for-word adaptation, I don't want to see it because the comics are so good.
Interesting.
I know that sounds crazy, but I don't want to bother with, say, Doom Patrol or even Swamp Thing. Unless you're going to adapt the comics by Alan Moore and Grant Morrison, I just don't want to bother. Maybe one day I'll change my mind. But I hope that they can do the Alan Moore version of Swamp Thing, because even that movie by Wes Craven, it's a fine movie on its own, but it's, compared to the Alan Moore comics, it's worthless in my opinion. I don't know if you ever saw the movie.
No, I don't think I have, actually. Are we going to be talking about it on...
Of course.
Okay,
it's
perfect.
Already scheduled for an episode of Tape Crusaders, so keep your eyes peeled for that.
A little synergy going on here.
Exactly.
So I think it could be pretty interesting to have Swamp Thing running around in the DC movies.
Right.
Very different from anything else that was announced. I guess it's kind of close to Creature Commandos, and maybe there can be some sort of, like, crossover going on there, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see how that's going to connect to like the major DC stories. But
Right. Well, okay, so next so this is an interesting one, a TV show called Lanterns. I mean, we already had Arrow and now we have Lanterns. I guess they have an aversion to the word green, but for whatever reason it's called Lanterns. Now, apparently there was a Greg Berlanti HBO Max Green Lantern series that they were going to do, but that's not going to move forward.
right,
Apparently Greg's vision was more of a space opera, and he's saying our vision for Lanterns is much more true detective, terrestrial-based investigation story. Oh, as a huge fan of True Detective, this is music to my ears. So
this may be the thing I'm most excited for, honestly. Like,
right.
if they do this right, I think it could be the best thing on the slate for sure. So they're introducing Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan, and it's gonna be more of like a buddy cop type of mystery show. So that's gonna be so fun to see. Like, a space mystery is great.
Yes. I mean, at the end of the day, Green Lantern is a cop. He's a space cop,
Right.
and so I love the fact that they're playing that up, right?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's going to be exciting. I know a lot of people have been talking about this concept in particular, like bringing in
Okay.
two lanterns and having them work together to like solve mysteries. So the fact
Sure.
that they're doing it as a show as well, I think is even better. That long form content of like the mystery and it unfolding, I think will work way better in a show than compared to a movie.
Yeah, good
so
point. Good point.
So
I
this
agree.
is going to be interesting.
Yes, and we've got another TV show here tying into a major DC character, and it's called Paradise Lost,
Yeah.
which is a Wonder Woman prequel set on Paradise Island or Themyscira. Here it's described as a Game of Thrones-ish story. It's really about political intrigue behind a society of all women. This is one of those ones where I just kind of wonder. I mean, we've already got a successful Wonder Woman franchise with Gal Gadot,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, we're gonna get to the big announcements in a minute, but this is one of the biggest ones, and I'm not sure how I feel about this. But I mean, if it's good, it's good. But what do you think, Josh?
Yeah, it's also strange because this is before Wonder Woman was even born, so it's more of like a
Right.
precursor. I have faith that they're going to be tying it in to something that's going on.
Sure.
They've also said, or James Gunn also said, that Lanterns, the mystery that they're kind of figuring out, is part of the larger like picture. So I'm assuming it's going to kind of lead into what's happening with some sort of threat coming in for the Justice League, forcing all of these characters to kind of come together to face this, great threat. So
Sure.
maybe Paradise Lost is going to be similar, where they're setting up certain things that maybe have been on Earth for a while,
Sure.
that have been locked away or something. Like, this one I'm the most like, I guess just I don't know what to think about it.
Right,
Like, it's
exactly.
just kind of like, it could be really good,
Mhm.
but I have no really feelings for it one way or the other. It's definitely going to come down to seeing like previews and who's cast and what characters are involved. So,
Right.
and I don't think I'm actually familiar with any stories on Themyscira that are like separate from Wonder Woman.
I know, I know a little bit, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. But
Yeah.
I just hope that they're not. I guess my hope is that they're not stuck with anything. Like the fact that they drew the line with Henry Cavill, they drew the line with, it sounds like, Ezra Miller. I'm glad that he's like. It sounds like they're only using stuff they want to use. So the fact that they're using this Paradise Lost show, I can only assume that they've got a plan for it. So I can only assume it's going to be good, right?
Yeah, I'm hoping too, with the delaying of the Flash movie, they are going to, and James Gunn he did mention this as well in the video, that the Flash movie is going to be kind of a resetting point.
Right.
So I'm hoping that they're going to take that as an opportunity to take the characters that they like and that are working and continue them on New 52 style, and like pick and choose who is going to be in this new universe.
You know what? Let's get to that at the end. But I
Sure,
have
yeah.
some opinions about that. But yeah, we'll leave that for the ending. for sure, because I like to talk about that. But let's just get through this list quick. We've still got this is an interesting one. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Again, Supergirl just starred in a TV show, lasted I don't know how many seasons, 5 or 6 or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was fairly successful. Melissa Benoist, I believe is how you pronounce her name. I thought she was perfectly cast as the character. The writing was very uneven on that show, but it looks like this version of Supergirl is going to be based on the Tom King series, which I haven't read, Woman of Tomorrow, which I'm a big Tom King fan. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tom King.
Yeah.
He did The Vision and Mr. Miracle and Strange Adventures, so I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's good. I do prefer the old 1950s naive Supergirl, but if this is well written, that's what they're going to use. So
right, and this is also like she was raised on like a rock, like a Kryptonian like rock essentially. So she's completely by herself. She's had to like survive off the land. So apparently it's going to be a very different version of Supergirl and have her almost play opposite to Kal-El, Superman, and it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and again, now it makes me want to pick up that comic, so that's good, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm probably going to add it to my read list now.
There you go.
Just so I've got that information, and Tom King's great, so.
Right. Yes, he is. Okay, so now we come to the two biggest announcements.
Sure, yeah.
Despite the fact that there's already a Batman franchise with Robert Pattinson, directed by Matt Reeves, they are rebooting Batman again for the DCU or whatever they're calling it now, and this is going to be called Batman: The Brave and the Bold, or just The Brave and the Bold.
Yeah, from what they've announced, they're just calling it The Brave and the Bold, which I think is smart. This has the potential, I think, to be the most fresh version of Batman we've seen in a very long time. If they were to just reboot Batman again, it would. I don't know what they would do with it, honestly. Like they've done it so many times now.
Right.
So introducing him as already established Batman, and the characters that we are introduced to are the Robin characters, the Bat family. You can continue this Brave and the Bold storyline and bring in other members and kind of grow this family, and then you can maybe give Batman some more time to shine in like Justice League, or kind of like more of an supporting character. I think is a smart way to go about this, especially since it is confirmed that the Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson Batman is going to be continuing. So we're going to be getting these other Batman movies that are completely separate from all of this. So I'd rather see some of these other characters shine, and we have Batman as a supporting. We already know who he is, and we're going to be getting new stuff with him. So,
we'll see. Now, the thing that I take away the big thing, this is going to lead into the final announcement, is that they're basing it on the Grant Morrison storyline, Batman and Son, which is where we are introduced to Bruce Wayne and Talia al
Ghul,
their son. Now, here's the thing. Grant Morrison's probably my favorite writer right now, but his take on Batman was controversial in that it was not the traditional Frank Miller film noir take on Batman. It was much more wild, maybe a little bit more science fiction, a little bit more bringing back a lot of the elements from the 1950s and 60s that some people would have rather forgot about. Like reintroducing the original Kathy Kane Batwoman and the Batman of, I don't even know how to pronounce it, Zenar. I don't even know. I love the character, but I just haven't ever had to pronounce it out loud, so I've never pronounced it out loud. But anyway, I'm a huge fan of all that run. I didn't personally like the idea of Batman Incorporated, but that's another story. Damian is a great character. I don't necessarily think Batman should have a son, but if you're going to have a son, Damian Wayne is a great character, I thought. I'm not sure if you've read that story.
I'm familiar with the character and the story, but I don't know if I've read the specific one that they're going to be adapting. But I know that he was raised by Talia for a while, so he is kind of more like her and an assassin, and it's kind of Bruce trying to train him to be more like Batman, and I think that is extremely clever and a great way to bring in a new Batman and showing him teaching somebody else how to be Batman is
Right.
really cool.
I agree. I agree. I
Yeah.
mean, it's definitely it's because that's the thing is my takeaway from it is that they're going in the opposite direction that Batman has been in for, I guess, 20, 17 years since Batman Begins, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
the Joel Schumacher movies were campy, and the Nolan movies were serious. The Snyderverse was serious. Now this is going to be, I'm assuming, in a slightly different direction, but we'll see how it goes. Which leads us to our final big announcement. They say that this is the true beginning of the new DC cinematic universe, and that's Superman Legacy. And the great thing about it is whenever they talk about this movie, they use the famous image from All-Star Superman by Frank Quitely, which was a story written by Grant Morrison, which is a sort of alternate take on Superman that it's kind of universally agreed upon to be the best Superman story of the past few decades, at least. It's definitely one of my favorites. Have you read All-Star Superman, Josh?
I've actually read parts of it. It's really good.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge Superman fan,
Mm-hmm.
and one of my friends told me to read that to kind of change my
Yeah.
mind, and he gave me a couple issues, and it's really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really looking forward to it. James Gunn is writing this movie, and they haven't picked a director yet. Saffron, I guess, hinted that he wants Gunn to direct it. I don't know if I'm like fully down for a Gunn directed Superman if it's gonna be along the same lines as some of his other films.
No, and I mean,
But
yeah, right. Yeah, I love James Gunn, but I don't want to see a Peacemaker Superman
right,
or Guardians of the Galaxy Superman.
Yeah.
We could use a little bit of humor and a
Yeah,
little bit
for
of
sure.
wackiness for sure, but
yeah, I want some levity in my Superman.
right.
For sure, for sure.
I think something like, because in my opinion, the Superman in the mainstream DC comics, I'm not even kidding, since like '86, it's not even Superman to me. I've only really seen the real Superman in Grant Morrison's comics, Mark Waid's comics, and maybe the animated series from the '90s,
yeah.
as well as the comic book adaptations of the animated series. That's the real Superman to me. So it's almost like they can't go wrong because everything else has been so bad. But if I were to give my, I guess, opinion on the tone, it would be something like, well, like an '80s like Indiana Jones or Star Wars, where it is serious, but it's also got light moments, and it's got romance, and it's got danger, but it's not self-obsessed and serious and depressing, right? Like there was a certain tone that those Spielberg Lucas films captured, and some modern movies can do it. Like Harry Potter kind of did it. Even I gotta admit, the Stephen Sommers Mummy series kind of had it. But it's a specific tone that not a lot of things are able to capture. Maybe Stranger Things kind of had it in the first couple seasons. I mean, because it was specifically trying to recreate '80s movies. That's part of
Right.
it, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, it definitely needs some level of camp and levity, especially with a character like Superman. I think
I don't want to
playing
say
up
camp,
his
though.
human side.
The word camp is thrown around a lot. I don't want
Yeah.
to say camp though, because when I think of camp, I think of Adam West Batman, which I love.
Okay.
But with Superman, it's more just like there's a humor, but there's a different kind of humor. Like for example, the humor in the Richard Donner films with Gene Hackman and Lex Luthor and Otis. Some people thought it was over the top. I was all for it. Like that's actual slapstick, almost Three Stooges level
Right.
stupidity. But I thought it was perfect. I loved it. So maybe some people think that's too much, but I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with that. I've never been a big Superman fan. So I'm definitely eager to see what they're going to do with this character and see how they're going to translate more of his comic persona into live action, because we haven't seen that in quite some time in on the big screen. So
Right. So here's the thing, like
Yeah.
we said, I'm ecstatic about this announcement. It's certainly there's some things I didn't expect. I never would have dreamed Creature Commandos would be in there, right?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I mean, it's also like we do have Superman Batman, we have Wonder Woman, we have Green Lantern. The Flash has been mentioned. Let's talk about how about this? Let's talk about who
Hmm.
they haven't mentioned. They've sort of mentioned Aquaman, but we
I was
don't really
gonna
know.
say, I think the big one is Aquaman.
Right. Because let's remind our listeners and our viewers, Aquaman is the biggest success of all the,
Financial success,
yes,
yeah,
of all the DC
yeah,
extended universe films.
which is
Maybe
crazy.
yeah, maybe I mean the Batman Nolan films were bigger, but I'm talking about the extended universe. As far as I know,
Did really? I'm pretty
it's
sure it broke a
debatable.
billion.
Okay, it's
The
debatable. It's
Aquaman. Let me
debatable. You can
see.
check that. But
Yeah.
there's no doubt Aquaman made more money than Wonder Woman. It made more money than the Justice League. It just boggles my mind because while I'm a big Aquaman fan and I did use him on my business card for Comic Book Syndicate as the picture, that movie was not great. It was very patchy, very cobbled together. But the fact that it was so successful, I think, speaks to the casting of Jason Momoa as a completely different take on Aquaman.
Mm.
And also, it kind of just defies like this whole perception of Aquaman as being this late night comedy joke. I've never bought into it. I think it's almost like one of those things where people believe he's a joke, but I don't think people actually believe he's a joke. I never bought into it. You know what I
Interesting.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the reason why people believed he was a joke is
Uh-huh.
the same reason why people thought that Batman was a joke after Adam West
Adam West.
before we got the Michael Keaton
Sure.
Batman, right?
Sure.
Um, so mainstream audiences only know him from like seeing him in cartoons or
Right.
like the odd comic. So he's always just been that guy in orange tights that talks to animals, right? Or talks
Yep.
to sea creatures. So he had this reputation before of this like goofy character that nobody took seriously. So it's very surprising. So I actually pulled it up. Um, the Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises just broke a billion, and Aquaman made 1.1 billion.
So more. It made
So
more.
more, yeah. Aquaman
Now,
even made more than
so
Dark Knight.
I'm not sure about adjusted for inflation, but the point is it's still
True, yeah,
gigantic. Like it
yeah,
just boggles my mind. But so yeah, we're not sure what's gonna happen with Aquaman. We're gonna get to again. That's gonna be our final topic. But before we get to Aquaman, let's
sure,
talk about the Flash movie because the Flashpoint has been in production for 5 years. It's been
yeah.
delayed for 4 years or whatever it's been. It's been ridiculous. However, a friend of ours, Junk Food Jeff Kavanaugh, actually forwarded me the back of the package for the Flash Funko Pop. And I'm not sure if
Right.
this is public knowledge. Should we read the characters that are on the back of this box here?
Yeah, I guess let's give out a big spoiler
Yeah.
warning for anybody
Spoiler warning for
listening.
Flashpoint, folks. So here are the characters that we see
Right.
listed as upcoming toys for the Flashpoint film. We've got the Flash. We've got Wonder Woman. We've got General Zod,
Hmm.
which I don't know if I knew General Zod was going to be in this film. Did you?
I didn't know General Zod or Wonder Woman were going to be in it until I saw that same leak. Um,
Interesting. Okay. We've also
and
okay.
I was going to say we have both versions of Batman on the
Yeah, I was gonna
back.
say that for last, but that's
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Well, 'cause
Surprise.
yeah, that's kind of public knowledge. Like people knew that Michael Keaton was supposed to be in it. I believe that's supposed to be the Ben Affleck one, right?
Yeah, so there's Ben
Okay.
Affleck and Michael Keaton Batman. I figured the big news that we could talk about is the fact that the reason why this movie was delayed so much, there's multiple versions of this dude in the movie, right? Like
Of the
Ezra Miller.
Flash.
Yeah, there's multiple
Yes.
versions of Ezra Miller's Flash
Yes.
in the movie. So the whole movie kind of revolves around this person who they have a reputation for being kind of a shitty person.
Yeah.
They've done a lot of awful things. They've been arrested. There's a big laundry list of things that we can talk about involving them. But yeah, it definitely feels like they spent the money and gambled having Ezra be the star, and then afterwards all of this stuff comes out about how they're kind of a shitty person, and
Right.
then they're like, what are we going to do? Well, let's just delay it a year and hopefully all of this
Blows
drama
over.
dies down, and then in a year something else comes out, and then they delay it a little bit, and they delay it, and they delay it. And it sounds like they've also been doing just like rewrites and reshoots and rewrites and reshoots.
Well,
So, yeah.
on the one hand, starting the Flash franchise with Flashpoint, it to me is idiotic. Again, it just shows the complete lack of vision with the previous regime at DC and Warner. You don't start DC with Crisis on Infinite Earths. You build up to Crisis on Infinite Earths. It'd be like you don't start Marvel with Infinity Gauntlet, right? Like this is a universe-altering story that changes everything. So you have to build up to it.
I mean, you don't start off the DC universe with Batman versus Superman either.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's it definitely feels like they did a lot of what they did to compete with Marvel, unfortunately.
Right.
Instead of just being their own thing and going at their own pace and telling good stories, it really feels like they are going, oh, well, there's this big team up movie. Let's do our big team up movie. Let's do Batman v Superman and roll it right into Justice League. We'll introduce all the characters in one movie, and then we'll figure out the rest later on. And then with Flashpoint, we see Marvel slowly building up to the multiverse and introducing Kang, who is going to be kind of like the big bad of this multiverse saga. Like, okay, let's do the same thing. Why not? We've got comics that deal with multiple universes. Let's do Flashpoint.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a bummer. And I think, too, when they originally announced the Flash movie, they called it Flash and Cyborg. Like, the movie was going to be a movie about them becoming, like, best buds, and it was going to be a solo movie with the two of them. And then they scrapped Cyborg and then slowly rolled it into it being a Flashpoint multiverse movie. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well... Let's just quickly, before we move on from Flash, let's just quickly run down the rest of the characters on this box. We've got the Flash, Barry Allen, and the Dark Flash. I'm assuming all played by Ezra Miller, like you mentioned, right? These are different versions of the same guy. And then we've got Iris West, which is no surprise. But we've also got a different version of Supergirl, not the Kara Zor-El or the Kara Zor-El version. I don't remember what this character's name is in the comics. Do you?
So from what I've heard is that this is Michael Keaton's universe's version of Kal-El. So it's going to be like an alternate Superman and not necessarily like Supergirl like we know.
Gotcha. Okay, so, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's just a little minor side note. But we're going to wrap up by talking about who we think is going to stick around and who we want to stick around.
Okay.
Because the possibilities, it sounds like, are Aquaman. I'm assuming Ezra Miller's out.
If they bring back Ezra Miller after all of this, it's like...
There's no way. The fact
it's
that they're
impossible.
The fact that they're not using Henry Cavill, I think is a sign that they're going to cut as much dead weight as possible. So really, it's just Jason Momoa.
Yep.
And
Gal Gadot, possibly.
Gal Gadot. What do you think?
I think it's possible that they bring Gal. I know that the Wonder Woman movie was canceled. I don't think Wonder Woman 84 was very successful.
No.
Both financially or critically. I know it was released during the pandemic, so it's hard to be like, oh, it was a flop.
Right.
So we'll see. And the other thing I can see actually carrying over is all of the Suicide Squad characters or whatever's left. So Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn and John Cena's Peacemaker, and then Amanda Waller.
Which that's already established, right? You know what's funny is I forgot about Margot Robbie because I thought they could use this as an opportunity to reboot her, but they've already used her in those Suicide Squads. They'll probably keep her, right?
I would assume so. Yeah. Yeah, and I do like her. Yeah, I think she's great as Harley Quinn. So
I think she's fine, but the YouTube channel, I don't remember her name, but it's called Deep Focus Lens. The reviewer there is really good, and she made a point that Harley Quinn is not supposed to be, for lack of a better word, she's not supposed to be this supermodel like Margot Robbie is. She should be more of like a Lucille Ball type, where yes, she's pretty, but she's also supposed to be a funny comedian. Like Margot Robbie's funny, but she's not, to me, she's not funny the way like Julia Louis-Dreyfus is funny, or
Interesting. I think that her in Birds of Prey and the Suicide Squad changed her character a bit to kind of amp up a little bit of her humor and make her more of like the kind of head in the clouds superhero or supervillain. So yeah, I do like her. I'd be happy to see her return and continue the any of the characters from the Suicide Squad sequel.
Well, see, for me, there's nothing wrong with Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, but it's almost like, if I think about it, could anyone else play it better? There's probably a lot of people that could. So it's like I'm not really attached to her, whereas I am attached to Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I don't want to lose her. Margot Robbie, there's probably a lot of people that could play the role just as good or better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel kind of the same with Gal Gadot, to be honest. I like her as Wonder Woman, but I feel like they could recast her and bring in somebody who's a bit of a stronger actor. Like I think she's great in the scenes that she's in, and the fish out of water stuff really works with her. But I think when it comes time for her to be more of like the serious commanding role, that's where she more falls flat for me.
Sure.
But I also wouldn't hate to see her return. I think she does a fine job as Wonder Woman. So
it's just the tricky thing about the three we're talking about is Margot Robbie is really successful and popular, but the first Suicide Squad movie was kind of a bomb. The second one was much better, but didn't do very well financially. Birds of Prey bombed. How the hell does a Harley Quinn movie bomb? Harley Quinn is DC's most popular female character.
Yeah, there's multiple reasons. I think it was the pandemic, and it was also the fact that they didn't name it. The original name was Harley. It was like this ridiculously long.
The Emancipation of one Harley Quinn, or whatever it was. It was just poor marketing.
Yeah.
And I think it was Margot Robbie's insistence that they didn't call her Harley Quinn, which was a mistake. And I think like the next week they changed it.
Yeah.
But Gal Gadot had a very successful first movie and then a unsuccessful second movie. And then we have Jason Momoa, who everybody loves. The movie was a huge success, but it wasn't very good. So it's kind of one of those, do we keep him? Do we not keep him? He's not really like the comic book Aquaman. I mean, we could keep Jason Momoa and recast him as Lobo.
That's what people are said. Yeah, a lot of people are talking about that. That could be interesting. I do like Jason Momoa. I think that his Aquaman is pretty interesting and fun. I feel like all of this stuff with the actress playing Mara. Amber Heard.
Yeah, that's a mess.
That's like another thing, right? Where I don't know how successful this new Aquaman movie is going to be. That's coming out in a couple of months, I think, right? Like this summer.
That was delayed too.
Did they delay it?
No, but I'm saying it was supposed to be out like December. Right. Like these movies, I wish they would have gotten them out earlier to kind of get them out of the way, because now they're kind of even more of a problem, right? It's like with New Mutants when they delayed it like 3 years,
right?
And it ended up coming out after they bought Fox. Like it was a mess. Yeah. It was a mess. But anyway.
Well, I guess the official launch, which is Superman Legacy, is not coming out until July of 2025. So they have a couple of years. They have a year in between, or 2 years in between. If everything comes out this year, they've got some time to distance themselves from what like the remnants of the Snyderverse to kind of pick and choose what they want and bring it over, which is I'm assuming what's going to be happening with the Flashpoint, or the Flash movie. Right.
So I guess what I'll say. So we have one comment. I hope I pronounced this right. It's Derek Segan. He says Segan, Windsor at its very best. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you so much, Derek.
Thank you for watching. I guess I can say in the end that I have absolute faith in James Gunn.
Hmm.
I think that everything he does is going to be good. The tone might not be exactly what I want or what you want or what we all want, but he's a good writer, he's a good director, and I have faith in him. For my money, the most important thing to me is Superman because they haven't gotten Superman right in so many years. To me, that's the most important. They've got to fix Superman, and there's really only two ways to do Superman, in my opinion. They can either do a Silver Age pastiche like All Star Superman, where you bring in all the crazy stuff like the Bizarro World and Crypto the Superdog and
Hmm.
all the weird science fiction stuff, or you do the original Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster Superman, which is politically subversive, beating up landlords, punching out corrupt politicians. But the public has not seen that Superman because that Superman never went mainstream. That Superman's too subversive, so I don't think they could do that. What do you think?
Yeah, I hope that it's the more Silver Age. I think that's what we need from Superman, and to kind of lead the new slate of movies,
Sure.
and to really set the tone of the future of this universe, especially coming off of the Snyderverse, and to
Yes.
really distance
Yeah.
yourself from that, because if you don't do something new and different, I don't think it's gonna be successful. If they just kind of retread everything with a plan this time, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So this slate is giving me something to look forward to. I think that with Superman as the start is a great idea too, because if that works and people buy into it, I think the rest are like easy,
Hmm.
easy to pull off. Superman is the only one here that I'm kind of like a little worried about.
Right. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, like um, the Brave and the Bold almost feels like a no brainer. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
it's you can kind of see how that's going to play out and its success. The fact that they're comparing the Themyscira story to Game of Thrones, they obviously have a
Hmm.
vision there.
Yeah.
The Lanterns being this buddy cop, like Superman is the
Hmm.
only one that feels like I have no idea where they're going with it.
Right. Right.
Um, I guess I can actually read. They said he is the
Well,
embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. He is kindness in a world that thinks of kindness as old-fashioned.
there you
So,
go.
I mean,
Well,
that sounds Silver Age to me.
if they can adopt, yes, if they can use the Silver Age comics from the '60s and the All Star Superman comic, we're in safe hands. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
So I think that wraps up our reaction.
Yeah.
We'd like to thank Derek Segan for listening. And to
We
everybody
do.
listening out there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we also want to thank anybody else who's watching this afterwards on YouTube or watching the playback on Facebook. Please let us know what you think about this new slate of movies. Leave a comment, share, like, tell your friends about it. And you can find all of our stuff over on our website as well at thecomicbooksyndicate.com. So please keep in touch and keep that comics conversation going.
That's right, and we'll see you on the upcoming episodes of Taped Crusaders, Trade Rats coming soon,
That's
and
right.
Slam. So yeah,
All
we'll
right.
see you at comicbooksyndicate.com.
All right. Take care,
All right.
everybody.
Okay, bye.